I feel like I have a weird relationship with Idubbbz, partly because we both have the same name, Ian, which is funny because I've never interacted with him once. However, the relationship, it's a one-way one. You might even say it's parasocial. My concern here is that Idubbbz has been an edgy boy in the past, and like I've said many times before, even though he loved saying the N-word and all sorts of stuff like that, I just do not think he is or ever has been reactionary. I just don't. I don't. You can go and look at archived versions of his old content, and I think that at least at this stage in my life and political awareness, I feel like I can do a pretty good job of distinguishing between being edgy because you think it's funny and being edgy because you want to use it as a cover for being reactionary, right? So I've known people who make edgy jokes in ways that are clearly in solidarity with the groups that they're being edgy towards. In other words, never from Idubbbz did I get the impression that he did anything for any reason other than comedy. Now, does that mean that what he did was perfectly great? No, a lot of people who liked Idubbbz just liked that he said the N-word. You have to be really careful when it comes to edginess. I've often had this issue, or have been accused of having this issue, when it comes to ironic sexism. My opinion is that when I make ironically sexist jokes, I do so in a way that where the underlying comedy is the absurdity of the sexism, which makes it really difficult to, like, sincerely buy into it when sexist. It's not a perfect line to walk, but, you know, comedy's hard. What are you going to do? Idubbbz has been getting a lot of flack lately for running the, I'd say, a bit of an apology circuit. He posted a video where he was introspective, which is great, and apologetic for past behavior in a way which I don't think is bad, but I do worry a little bit for him, you know? I think that self-improvement should always be a process of growth and celebration, not one of guilt and, self-debasement. I don't think he's been self-debasing, but, well, let's see. How's the conversation? 50% like, 50% dislike. What's going on here? The opening line of this YouTube's little comment blurb down here is, there's a recurring trend of white content creators building their platforms on bigoted content and then apologizing years after the fact. Don't worry, folks. I'll never apologize. You don't have to worry about it from me.
Black creators and black people in general have had to deal with the environment that, me and, other creators have.
Because if we had the ability to cancel you.
Do you know this girl, Vaush? We follow each other on Twitter, and I'm going to be honest with you, the main thing that I know about her is that she's stacked. Something which she does, which she makes everyone following her very aware of. So you don't have to, try hard to learn that about her. But I don't think I've, like, directly interacted with her, so I have no preconceptions outside of the stacked thing. So, I mean, that's cool, right? That's not bad. That's a cool thing, you know?
You wouldn't have been successful in the first place.
And I totally...
All right, well, let's skip the coming up, because I'm going to watch the damn video.
I want to preface this video with a disclaimer. If you are somebody who innately finds the mention of race or racism agitating, turn this video off and go where the love is, because you are not gonna find it here, babes, and we are being productive today. This is not a drama video. It's not a video about canceling anyone. It's not even a video about railing against white content creators who create platforms.
Oh shit, Big Mouth reference in the back. It's over.
Platforms come to exist in the first place, why they seem to persist in spite of the communities that they harm, actively telling those creators that it causes harm, and what, if any, material things those creators can do to mitigate the harm they've caused and or at least demonstrate their sincerity so we, as an audience, can better determine who is being genuine and who's just trying to make some kind of leftist rebrand. Because the reality is, this exists, this happens. So what do we do going forward? This is not a video about condemnation. It is about problem solving.
Honest question. Can anyone think of any instances of somebody actually doing a really insincere rebrand as a leftist? I'm sure it's happened, but I'm wondering what an example of that would be. Where, oh, okay, Bad Bunny. Oh, Bad Bunny's a perfect, yeah, okay, Bad Bunny for sure, for sure. Anybody else, though? Like, I mean, somebody who fits kind of this description, where they're like a white, edgy dude, but then they, like, shift over. But no, but I mean, like, and they're still bad. Like, it was insincere. I'm not really seeing examples of what I'm thinking of. Destiny does not fit the bill. I don't know. I just don't know how much this actually happens.
And it's about recognizing very real realities, very different kinds of harms and different perspectives and opinions people are entitled to have around harm that is caused. I interviewed Idubbbz, or Ian.
I was being very just generally uncaring.
But before I show you that interview, I need to first give you a little backstory and explain to you why I interviewed him so you have the proper context to view it in. Because again, this is not about him as an individual. He is a case study, which is why I first interviewed Francesca Ramsey, an amazing writer, comedian, actress, and also somebody that Idubbbz had personally attacked and caused a harassment campaign to wage against her for years. I started thinking about this because I co-host a show called The Leftist Mafia. And a couple of months ago, we had to remove one of our co-hosts, Illuminati, when substantial evidence was brought to the table to show that she had a history of attacking and harassing every creator that seemed to cross her path. But more than that, we learned that she had done what I like to call the leftist rebrand. It's when white content creators build platforms on what they call edgy but bigoted content. And then after years of causing harm and attacking absolutely anybody who criticized them for it, they simply apologize to their audiences who not only never cared that they did it, loved them precisely because they did it. And that audience, of course, forgives them because it was never their harm to forgive. And they go on business.
I think what we're seeing with Idubbbz, though, is that the audience doesn't forgive them. The audience gets mad that they're apologizing for what they did, you know? Because if they apologize for doing the stuff that the audience liked, that's an implicit attack on the audience. Because they're basically saying, like, oh, well, you were wrong to have liked that. And that's kind of what Idubbbz did, too, right? I think it can cause a lot of drama, depending on how it's done.
As usual. The problem with these redemption arcs or rebrands, however you choose to characterize it, is that one, you never really know who's being sincere versus just making some kind of pivot for their own financial or professional gain. Two, there are rarely any concrete acts of atonement made to or for the individuals or communities that were actually harmed, and they're usually left entirely out of the conversation. Three, while it does theoretically make sense to want to forgive people for doing something wrong and then recognizing that and wanting to do better, little exploration is had into whether or not giving out that forgiveness so freely incentivizes other white creators to build their platforms this way, knowing they will be excused in the future. And four, little exploration is had into why
I do think that understanding people's sincerity is important, but I really don't think that's like a real problem. Like, if we're overly forgiving to people, that'll make people be edgy because in years from now, they're planning on doing a pivot. I just don't, I don't know. Audiences just tend not to like it when people do pivots from edgy to left content. Kind of for the same reason that Keppel's got a ton of blowback when she kind of pivoted from being broadly representative of left pro-trans stuff to being more authentically edgy. There's a lot of tension between those forces.
Those creators didn't seem to realize their behavior was apology worthy when the communities they were harming were actively telling them it was. As Francesca put it,
they will make you a target and they will make you their jumping off point, and they will use bigotry as a come up. And I don't want to be right. It's bittersweet. But as
when are you going to pivot to leftist content, Vaush? One day.
This would happen years ago. Years. Not a month ago, not a week ago, years. Check the receipts. I said this would happen, and it absolutely did.
So while I've been thinking about all that, I came across this tweet by Francesca.
I didn't intend on making a video about this, but I'm so angry that I just have to say something and just get it out and let it go. So recently there's been a wave of people who've made bigoted content on the internet coming forward and apologizing. TikTok, we've got Kelly Cagdon. On YouTube, we have Idubbbz, I think is how you say his name. And in years past, we've had Shane Dawson. And all of these people I have different relationships with. So I hosted a show for MTV called MTV Decoded. I actually created the show.
I don't know anything about Cheska. I don't really think there's much of a comparison at all to be made between Idubbbz and Shane Dawson, though. That's a whole different thing.
I wrote on the show, I hired tons of incredible people and made a lot of great content that I am very proud of. But at the time that the show was on, I dealt with a lot of harassment because of it from these people that labeled themselves anti-social justice warriors, anti-feminists on YouTube, including Idubbbz. And he made a number of videos where he used the N-word fully uncensored, where he put my face in videos and called me, a and, you know, said that my work was cancer and like my work made him want to kill himself. Most of these videos have been privated, so I can't show them to you, but I've seen them. And he created a culture and a fan base that then harassed me. So did Shane Dawson.
And the caption on the video read, a response regarding creators who rebrand or outright denounce their past racist or bigoted content via apology video. The culture of harassment and bigotry you created and profited off is not erased with a sorry or a rebrand.
The thing that I've always been curious about from people who say stuff like this, and I don't necessarily disagree, because obviously, like, the consequential harm of what you've done isn't erased just by changing your mind, even if you've been sincere, right? But I guess what I don't understand is, like, what are you supposed to do? Because a lot of people will say stuff like, you know, oh, well, you need to make amends. But what does that, like, actually mean? If you've done bad things, but you sincerely switch over to doing good things, okay, so the bad things did not happen. The past still has effects on the present, you know. You can't erase that. But what... Yeah, I've never seen anyone answer this question. It always just goes to this, like, vague, you have to make amends, or you have to listen to concerns, or whatever. But what it always feels like to me is actually being said is, you need to just meet my arbitrary standard of approval. It always just seems like, okay, well, maybe you are sincere in saying good stuff now, but, like, I'm not swayed. But so, by what criteria could you be swayed? Well, you haven't made amends. Well, what does that mean? Right? Like, it's stuff like that. Which I don't really care for. People have accused me of being overly enabling in my willingness to say, like, oh, well, I think this person's changing for the better. But in my experiences, I just haven't seen many consequences to welcoming people in an open way. If we believe in rehabilitation, like, broadly as a social value, if we think that, like, oh, this black kid from the inner city who did, like, a shooting was, you know, not, like, fundamentally evil, but was cajoled by gang leaders in the area, and in reality could be a functional good person with the right environments, or this person did this horrible thing, or, like, this person did an assault, or this person had mental illness and, like assaulted a person in a subway, but, like, if we're willing to go as, like, a general principle, I believe people can change. The question then is, well, what criteria do we look to, you know? And that's tough, and that varies a lot in case-by-case situations, but I don't think it would be fair for a person to go like, oh, well, that guy assaulted somebody and did his time, and now he's, like, conciliatory and apologetic and seems good, but I'm not convinced. Maybe that's, like, an okay interpersonal decision, but I don't know if it's a good moral argument against them. I don't know. There's not, like, a hardline answer or anything. It's very vague. It's not like, for everyone. There's no way to know, and you have to have some standard.
When I looked at the people that she had tagged, I realized that Idubbbz and I followed each other because I attended Creator Clash earlier this year with my friend LOL Overruled.
Is that how
so
I get
went
to
down
follow?
the rabbit hole, starting with the apology. Which, listen, as far as these apology videos go, it was a better one.
He was so flagrant, and I will say, like, I'm not one to give out cookies. I watched his whole apology video, and I will say, like, in the grand scheme of responses, he did a better job than most. So I'm going to say that he probably had someone advising him, which I don't think is a bad thing. It's probably a smart thing to do. But again, it's just not enough for me. It's not.
So this is what I mean. She's perfectly in the right to never like Idubbbz. If she's been, like, personally harassed by Idubbbz, that's fine. You can never like a person for any reason you want. That's okay. But as a broad social standard, I'm wondering what a good line would be, you know? This is probably in large part because, so my standard on this is different because, like, so a good example for me would be, like, Destiny. I don't like him very much. There's a little known secret. Many people haven't figured this out yet. I'm not fond of the guy. He's just a weird guy, you know? Just a little off-putting, a little strange. Maybe that's me being ableist, but I'm just not fond of the man. And, but, like, if I've always been, like, you know, well, regardless of broader taste, like, if he wants to do work canvassing or whatever, because he hallucinated a lefty that told him that it would be wrong for him to canvass, so then he wants to do it, whatever leads him to, you know, like, oh, okay, well, he's doing a good thing there, or, like, okay, well, that's good. And I can leave it at that, you know? I guess I'm just not really concerned with, like, an arbitrary standard of when I think he would be on the, quote, good team I'll probably never like him. But that's not the same as having an understanding of the consequences of people's actions, right? Like, you can dislike even good people, and that's fine. That's your right, you know? It's America. You can do that. Yeah, I don't know. I'm pausing a lot, and it's a long video, but, you know, I just want to be clear. I'm not attacking either of these two. These are, like, not fundamentally answerable questions, and I do recognize that this question does ring a little different for me because I'm A, a white guy, B, edgy, and C, nonstop targeted as, like, the boogeyman of BreadTube, you know? So I'm, like, my perspective on these issues is going to be really different from, I don't know, a black woman who's had to deal with 1,000 edgy white dudes attacking them, and then one of them shifts over and is like, actually, I'm good now. I recognize that, like, purely in terms of experiential bias, coming from different perspectives. So, yeah, that's, you know, that's not nothing.
For me, and I hope that he's genuinely committed to being a better person. And again, like, I listened to it, and maybe he is, but, like...
Notably, though, in his apology, he singled out only one creator. At first, the only name he singles out to apologize to in this video
is a white woman.
Francesca, okay, we're right here. We are right.
I mean, you know, I got clocked out immediately.
See, I didn't know who she was, so I assumed she was a black woman, right, based on the context of the video.
But did you go down the rabbit hole of how that situation started? I mean, the levels of irony. You apologizing to a white girl for using the N-word, who also used the N-word.
Who used to herself
also used the N-word, and you thought that you were gonna check her on using the N-word, but also using the N-word. Come on, we in an Inception territory.
But I do think it's a conversation that needs to be had.
This is like the shit Shark went through all over again? No. They're laundering personal grievances as broad moral battles. No, guys. This is what I mean. Don't start off defensive. Don't start off defensive. It is true that everyone who disagrees with me is wrong and morally evil, but we haven't gotten there yet. Understand it from their perspective. Idubbbz did a lot of questionable stuff and said a lot of questionable stuff and did lead harassment campaigns, unknowingly or otherwise. And then if he does an apology video and the one person he names an apology is a white woman, but not can you understand why they might think that's noteworthy? You know? Like if a lot of black women got targeted and it's like a lot of the controversy was over saying the N-word, but the named person is a white woman, you know? Like, I can understand what, you know.
Had with the centering of whiteness, even within your recognition of wrongness or apology going forward, there's still, not only is there a centering of white women in even the apology and aftermath, but it's even the center of what I believe drove the desire to go this path. Because I think his audience, what happened is the audience,
they were attacking his wife,
and that is the tea. And that's the tea.
That's when it got real.
and that's what I'm like. So it got real for you when a white woman was hurt, and in the apology, it's only a white woman who is singled out and apologized to. Because I'm like, well, you're apologizing for making racist and bigoted content, and yet no black person has been individually named, right?
And to be fair, like, I don't need him to check me by name. I would prefer my name
leave it out of
it. But
no,
at
absolutely.
the same time, I did similarly to you clock the irony of him devoting a substantial part of that video directly to Tana.
Yes.
And even she's another example of someone who has rebranded, right? Like, she was saying the N-word, she was making this like bigoted content, and then she really kind of,
this is kind of shallow. She was his wife, not a white woman. Isn't it's the Tana Westbrook is the woman, the woman who Idubbbz went up to and said the N-word to like discombobulate, ameliorate. That's not his wife. Tana Moja? I don't know her actual name. It's Tara Westbrook. I don't know. Guys, just watch the video. There's a lot of defensive people in chat already. Okay. No matter how many times we go through this process, guys, every individual person has to be given the chance to disappoint us completely before we act defensive or presumptuous with them. Everyone deserves the opportunity to disappoint me. Everyone deserves the opportunity to leave a fresh wound on my psyche. We don't come to this with our shields up, okay? So let's just watch it.
Moved in a different direction, and that was what he called out, supposedly, that led down that path. So again, it rings hollow for me, especially because I've been on the internet a very long time and I've watched this happen numerous times, and I've seen people come and go, and the people who are able to remain relevant and the ones who are able to continue to have a platform evolve. And sometimes it is authentically so, and other times it's like, oh my God, I gotta move, I gotta change shit up because they about to cancel me, I'm about to get out of here. And it's like,
I have to set the stage for this kind of video because when you talk about racism, there are people who just feel personally attacked. They automatically feel like you're making a personal indictment of them, and from that moment forward, they are in defense mode and you are their adversary. Because what they're really hearing is, you think I'm a bad person. You think I consciously decided to be racist. But the reality is a lot more nuanced and a lot less personal than that. The reality is that if you recognize that racism is pervasive in a society, that there is systemic racism, that we are all being raised and educated and indoctrinated in a society that has woven racism and anti-blackness into our laws, into our media, into our schools, into our every fabric of our institutions, you will internalize and perpetuate racism and anti-blackness, whether you're aware, whether you consciously set out to be or identify as a racist, whether you're a good person to the people in your life, whether you think you mean well or not, unless you make the
This is true. People in chat seem to be in agreement, but I just want to make clear, the only difference between what she's saying right now and what I'm saying is that I go out of my way, and this is a reflection of my personality too, so it's not really like something I have to try for, but the way that I phrase progressive talking points like this are done in a way that makes it easier to disarm people who are resistant to talking points like this, if that makes any sense. Because I think that's one of the benefits of being like a white anti-racist or whatever, right? Because like, I could be like, hey, you know, United States, racism, it's a thing, right? It's been known to happen. It's not great. You know? Like, if you lean into everything with this like jovial, disconnected sort of pseudo-comedic tone, I think it's a lot easier to lay out arguments that other people would get defensive about. But holy shit, man, people get so defensive when a black woman says stuff like this, you know? Like, institutional racism affects people's behavior, whether or not they're consciously aware. Like, that's absolutely true. It's like objectively true. It's inarguably true. But people get really defensive, or at least much more so when a black woman says it than a white guy. So it's, you know, all good.
Decision to recognize and unlearn these things and do better going forward. Although it is often received as such, it is not an innately personal indictment if you are a white person being told that something you do or say is racist. The problem is doubling, tripling, and quadrupling down, taking an utter refusal to hear or consider what entire communities are actively telling you. And it's often worse than just ignoring or refusing to hear those communities that these creators are causing harm to. Often their audiences will attack those communities.
But you know, again, like, not to give him cookies because it's the bare minimum, but
Brownies.
It is very telling that he admitted that this was coming from a place of insecurity.
I am very insecure about my ability to create interesting content or like entertain. And it's one of the reasons why I, kept making this hurtful content. I don't want you to interpret that as an excuse, but I hope that that is relatable to other creators who maybe struggle with the same thing. I'm not confident in my ability to entertain. And I think if I had to rely on my personality to entertain people, that I wouldn't have any amount of success.
Yeah.
Because that was the thing that I picked up on too, where it's like, it's really easy to, and I'm guilty of this too, like I don't participate in, I used to like hate tweet stuff. I'd be like, I hate this show, so let me sit here and talk about it. And it's like, you know what? Even if I don't like the content, they did the work and they put it out in the world. Instead of me doing the same thing, I'm sitting here hating on them and shitting on them when I could be putting this energy into making the thing that I'm actually interested and passionate about. And that's what a lot of these creators that build platforms off of just hating on things, it's like, it's because you can't create anything from scratch. You have to really put yourself out there to have an original idea and put the time and energy into crafting it and building an audience. It's really easy to piggyback on somebody else's work and then just say, well, this sucks. It's like, okay, you literally have not made anything. And so again, it's truly the bare minimum, but him acknowledging that was coming from a place of like, am I actually even funny? Yeah, I believe that. I believe that you didn't know if you were funny without talking shit about other people's work.
I think he's
I
funny.
believe that. I 190% believe that. And I think that's actually, when I peel it back, that's actually what was a bigger problem for me when I realized it, because I'm like, me recognizing that in the same way that you recognize that both of us were inclined to give empathy, and both of us were like, you know, I understand the impulse to do this, I understand the impulse to shit on these things, I understand that, but you know what makes you feel, I think, two things. One is Black people were always being asked of and expected of and held in the place to always have to be compassionate, empathetic to people who are mistreating us, one, but two, it's because we as creators can appreciate what, okay, someone else has created and what goes into that, and that makes you have a different kind of respect for that. So it's two levels. We respect it on a human level, we empathize because we're humans, and then we empathize as creators. And on no level did he empathize, on none of those levels did he empathize with any of these people, so much so that even in this apology, none of them get singled. Where was the Jinx? Where was where were these people? Where was any Jinx? That was the beginning of the end for Jinx's platform, and he's no longer on YouTube. And then I thought about that. That's also a part of it. The reason why you single out the white content creator, in addition to it being a white woman, because she's still here. Because she's still here. And
guess what? She was like, come on my podcast. Let's talk. They're just going to...
I don't know all the details of what they're discussing right now, but they said that this was necessary context before the discussion, so I'm fine with that. You should go on Leftist Mafia. It's just a whole bunch of people that like you. I don't know if it is. That's a bold assumption for me to make.
Use this to then platform each other and continue to like raise their own profile, which is why I'm like, none of this holds water for me, because, you know, again, like bars in hell, but the only person that I've really seen take any real measurable responsibility is Jenna Marbles. She said, I'm out. She said, I've built a platform, I've done some things that I'm not proud of, and I think her motivations were twofold. I think she was burnt out on creating content to begin with. I think that was just, you know, the timing was right, but she said, I'm not going to do this anymore. And again, like, I don't think she needs me to accept her apology or anything, but at the same time, I'm like, you know, you're backing up what you're saying. Like, I've profited off of this. I don't.
Well, surely we can have a better standard for moving leftwards as a content creator than leaving content creation. I mean, surely that can't be the only standard.
Good about it, so I'm going to bow out. And
calm down, facetious.
It just feels like damage control to make the apology and then just move. Because even he said at one point, he was like, I'm not going to just keep apologizing. I'm not going to keep making content about this. And I was like, yeah, exactly. This is you going, I'm done with this, and I never have to think about it again after this. When the reality is, you've made millions off of this content. So
and I think that is actually, you know, a place.
What did Jenna Marbles do anyway? What has Jenna Marbles done? I don't even know. She did blackface? Yeah, that looks like blackface. I could see some people getting upset over this. I'm seeing room for controversy. Apparently she was doing like a Nicki Minaj.
Something that I actually want to discuss, and I will discuss with him, because you know, normally when you have conversations about like reparations, just as a larger conversation in our society, that becomes a harder, more nuanced conversation, because people say, then who, blah, blah. Yeah, this is very, we know who,
we can see,
we know who, and we know when. And I'm like, well, you know what, I think, and I'm going to talk to him about this, I think, you know what is a meaningful step, because I know he said in the video, I am running ads on this video, and I'm going to donate to a foundation or something. The Black people you harmed, of course there are far more Black people that have been harmed than just the individual content creators, and that you will have to atone for in some other way, and you probably will not be able to, right? That's just what that is, because you put that out into the world, and you can't take that back. Once you fester hate and white supremacy, it is what it is. But as far as the individual creators, you know who they are. You go look at the privated videos, on the videos, every video you did, every content cop on a Jinx, what you did to you, what you did to all of them, and what was the revenue on those videos, and pay and cut some checks.
And again, he did acknowledge that he has built a career, a successful career, because he's gone on to do other things outside of YouTube. I think he's doing this like boxing series or something like that, and I'm sure you
can. To that, I don't think that the measure of a person's growth or change should be being willing to give money to people that they've been mean to before. I guess you can do that. I guess it would really depend on like the severity of the harassment. You know, that stuff can, there's like a wide range of potential ways that could hand out.
Making tons of money from that. He got that platform off of those videos. He didn't just get the opportunity to sell tickets and do, you know, these big events.
I think he lost money on the most recent Creator Clash.
No, he got to do that because he built a ginormous audience on YouTube.
Right.
And I don't know who his wife is. I don't watch her content, but his success has also given her an ability to have a platform, right?
Yeah.
There's like a trickle down to your point about reparations. We can see that the content that he created has opened doors for him beyond YouTube. So again, personally, I don't need a check from him. I'm good.
And I love that for you.
But I love that for me too. Honestly, I really do. But at the same time, it's like an apology is not enough for me.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's anything that he can do that will ever be enough.
Yeah.
And I think that him and any of these other creators who rebrand, if you genuinely are looking to better yourself, you have to acknowledge and accept that it won't be enough for some people.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that. I don't think about you. I don't lose sleep over you. You should be moving forward in a way that's repairing harm and being better every day of your life.
Yeah.
Because that's the bare minimum.
Yeah.
Like, not being a racist, not being a bigot is the bare minimum. We're not giving out cookies for that.
I don't really like that sentiment. Even if, if self-improvement should always be incentivized. I don't like the idea that, like, every time a person improves and the world improves with them, the immediate discussion is like, oh, well, I'm not thanking them for that. You know, I feel like there's more to talk about here than just your willingness to not, you know, like, there's, if in a purely utilitarian sense, I mean, obviously the goal should be to incentivize the best possible behavior. We don't want to make it intolerable to move left. That doesn't produce good outcomes. I just don't know what, like, the threshold for reconciliation is. But like, moving over to the left or becoming a better person doesn't require people who you've wronged in the past to like you, you know? This isn't like My Name is Earl. You know, growing as a person doesn't mean that you have to get the thumbs up from everyone behind you. That's not like the criteria by which you're judged.
Thank you so much. I am surprised that you agreed to do it, but very delighted.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to expand my horizons a little bit. 2016 me, probably wouldn't.
Listen, I'm surprised 2023 you were doing it either.
Oh, hell yeah. I appreciate that. I take that as a compliment.
Yeah, listen, I honestly, I want to start off by saying that I very much so respect that you were even trying to take all the accountability and the ownership of it all. I respect that you were even coming over to my side of the internet to come talk about it, because I am very much so a racial investigator, and people find me to be an intimidating character. So I'm like, and I try to be really transparent because I don't like to ambush people or anything like that. It's not my steez. I don't enjoy it. I don't like stressful content or stressing people out.
The tone has changed? Well, yeah, this is a separate conversation with a separate person, probably on a separate day. Of course, the tone's going to change. We'll see how the convo goes.
So that's why I'm like, let me go into it and be as transparent as possible. I want to be as nice as possible without being accused of being too nice, while also being as transparent about what are some of my takeaways and thoughts, and also giving you the opportunity to expand, and let's try work to a good place.
Yeah, you have a very tough job. I don't, I know what you mean. You got to walk a line.
You get it. Exactly. So basically, let me tell you the starting, how we ended up here. So, I went to a creator clash with my boy, Alex. And funny enough, he actually had tried to fill me in on the controversy, but I never care about anything. So this is how the conversation went. He invited me to come to creator clash. He called me to be like, hey, just so you know, like, there is a little bit of, controversy. He's done some edgy, like, content in the past. And I said, is edgy white people speak for racist? And he said, yes. And I said, okay. And I said, all right. And that was all my, because listen, I'm of the mindset, we live in America. We live in a racist society. We live in these kinds of things. I am not putting it on you as an individual or anything like that. And I don't really want to take an individualistic approach to trying to nail you to the cross. I more so just want to see different things, and I think patterns that we can unpack, and maybe it could make it better for some people to understand what are issues Black people have with certain content or going forward in these kinds of things, right? So that's kind of where I'm coming from. So I saw the apology, watched the whole video, and I texted both Alex and my editor, and I said, this is the best of them I've seen as far as apology videos and seeing content creators throughout the years and actors, famous people, public figures make apologies. I thought it was the most accountable I've ever seen it be. So I want to give you all the credit for that.
That's great to hear. For me, it's been a huge relief, because I think for me, it's like, even though I was taking a stance on, using slurs and, being very like, just not wanting to be responsible for how other people felt, me existing in the world and, trying to, live outside of my bedroom at home, I found it to be very challenging to interact with people without feeling some amount of guilt of like, have you seen my videos? You know, how would you interpret what I've said? And, you know, how uncomfortable have I made you? And it, you know, it interaction after interaction, it kind of added up to me saying like, yeah, something needs to be.
Vaush is reacting so hard right now. I listen, when it's not a debate, you know? When I have thoughts, I'll say them. I think this is fine. I think this is worthwhile engagement. We are here to watch what they say.
Said.
Yeah.
At least.
And I feel that, and I understand that, and I very much so am glad that you at least even came to that spot, because that's more than most ever do. But what I guess I wonder is, why not then? Because a trend I've realized very often, I see this in the space a lot, is a tendency for, you know, white content creators to be called out for things present day that were racist and bigoted then. But there were always Black people and people present and marginalized people telling them that then. Why not hear it when they say it?
I think generally, I think for me, it was, I think a sort of a policy or like a just very black and white thinking. Like as soon as because for me, I think it's about caring about how other people are feeling, period. Not necessarily just marginalized people. I think I personally had an issue with like caring about people's feelings at all, because I felt like as soon as I would open that door, then like I felt like I would be a lot less safe to, you know, do and say whatever I wanted. And now that's kind of like an in, I guess, for people to criticize, or an in for, you know, people to, you know, because I'm essentially
that's kind of true. It's one of the reasons why I say that for the most part, you should never apologize to like the mob, like capital T, capital M there. If you do a lot of good, you know, and one thing wrong, and you admit that you did one thing wrong, like you're now wrong on everything. Because people are always going to accuse you of having f***ed up on something. And as humans, we do f*** up on things. The problem is like, it's really, really difficult to selectively point out where a mistake was made and then have people understand that's what you're willing to apologize for, you know? So like an example would be if I said something that I genuinely thought was like problematic or like bigoted or something, and I was like, oh, well, okay, I apologize for that. You can imagine a million people going, well, what about all these things you said? And then they go on to like cite a ton of shit that I said that's totally fine, right? Once you indicate that you're willing to accept any criticism, you open yourself up to all of it. And criticism is good if it's good criticism, but this being the internet, it generally isn't. So I can understand a hesitance to open yourself up to stuff like that, though obviously, you know, it's going to happen to an extent anyway. So responsibly engaging with that is important.
Exposing myself as like, oh, I'm now thinking about how other people are feeling, you know, but I guess to your point, I don't have any Black friends. I have some friends who are people of color, but, you know, it's never, I grew up in Southern California, and I'm certain if I grew up around more Black people, I wouldn't have felt nearly as comfortable saying the things that I was saying. And I think the more interactions that I've had with Black content creators, and just, you know, regular everyday people, the more I've realized like this matters.
So you know, and I don't say this as an indictment. I say this as a transparent thing that we would all realize. And I appreciate your answer, because I think your answer allows me to like more clearly parse that out. Is I didn't care, and I don't mean that in a, you know, but didn't care. These are not people that you, and that was something I think kind of struck me, right? Because in watching your video, a thing I wanted to ask you about was, how come Tana, of all the, you only singled out one person?
Okay, she is going to bring it up.
Why her?
I think because I kind of just took it to like another level. Because I think a lot of commentary channels, they can feel very comfortable and justified in speaking about a variety of topics, because they're not like in-person harassing people, and a lot of them are avoiding saying like the slurs, like I was saying. They're keeping it to like a certain level where they look around their community and they're saying like, well, I'm not doing anything like that polarizing. I'm kind of I'm riding the line a little bit more. And I think for Tana specifically, she was, I think, the youngest person I've made a video about. And I don't know, it was just, she was, I guess she was also in, I think the worst part about it is going to her meetup, because she was in what would feel like a, you know, a safe space. She's already putting herself out there at a meet and greet. I wouldn't even do meet and greets. You know, she was doing a meet and greet, and I jump scared her, and you know, who knows what my intentions were. She had no idea. No one there knew what my intentions were, and that's a scary situation to be in. That's horrible.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely valid. You're right. There is a fair situation to that, and that makes me think of, so Francesca Ramsey, who I have spoken with, she tells us a story about being terrified in the airport when she runs into one of your fans.
When I encountered one of his fans in the airport, I had to ask myself, am I going to exit this conversation and continue to have my life? You know what I mean? Like, my life could be in danger, right?
Yeah.
Like, and so, you know, again, that's why when there's all of these conversations about
what happened there. I guess without more details, that sounds like hyperbole, but I guess the person could have been super, like, weird, you know? Even Idubbbz has pointed out that his fans have been super weird.
Don't call me a Karen, and don't call me white, and don't call me racist. It's like when those names are used, your feelings are hurt. But when someone calls me the N-word, I have to wonder, is this person going to try and kill me? Am I going to lose my life right now?
Who comes up there and says...
That's true. Obviously, like, racial slurs aren't just insults, you know? Anyone unhinged enough to like just go up to a black woman and shout the N-word is indicating a level of emotional investment and political bias that goes beyond, like, heckling, you know? That's valid. Did they run up and say the N-word, or was it just like a fan? I don't know.
I watch and I know you from Idubbbz videos and the fear she felt in not knowing what this person is for her. And I think why I asked the Tana question is this. And I think you're right to apologize to Tana. I don't think you're wrong to apologize to Tana. I think what I really want to unpack is the decision to apologize her exclusively, because if you watch a video as someone like me who didn't watch your content and who isn't familiar of the larger array, you would think that this is the only person, you know, or maybe the way I read it was, okay, he's been in trouble for using this kind of language and racial slurs and all of this, but the only person he individualizes is a white woman. And he says, you know, he apologizes maybe to the black community in large, and it would lead you to believe that no black person was individually picked on or targeted, and that's not the case. And I think what I find interesting is that even in apologizing for doing racist things, a white woman is who was apologized to, as though there weren't black people who were called the N-word. And I wonder, because that took me down a rabbit hole of watching, you know, videos, and I saw a content cop you did on Jinx.
On camera.
You don't get a break in the beginning. No resting. 100% 24/7 grind.
Damn, this is on the grind. That shirt shouldn't say, it's about that time. It should say, it's about that grind. 4 videos a day, non-stop editing. I'm like an animator. I put so much work into my videos. I'm like sitting there keyframe after keyframe, trying to figure out how to put this video in the corner of my screen. Grind, mad grind. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, nothing but grind. I'm on the grind. My house, this ain't a normal house. It's a grind house.
You gotta eat, sleep, and shit, YouTube.
You gotta suck dick and shit, YouTube. Oh, this is so motivational. Holy shit. Oh, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it right now. I'm gonna sit on my bed. I'm gonna sit on the end of my bed. I'm gonna set up the camera, and I'm gonna watch some videos. Editing. That shit. What am I, dude, you gonna edit your video? No, what do I look, gay?
And I wonder why a Jinx
The comedy really is heightened by the fact that he looks like the platonic ideal of a white boy in those older videos. It's the stark contrast, I think, that really sells the dynamic.
wouldn't receive an apology, because I think and I credit you for this in your apology, I actually did really like this, the part where you acknowledge I didn't feel comfortable in my own ability to be funny, or my own ability and my own personality, or whatever it is. And so
okay, wait, I just want to be clear so this doesn't undermine the point, okay? I think that a lot of Idubbbz stuff is both cringe and funny. I think it straddles a very unique line. The reason why I'm comfortable laughing here is because my community is like hardline left. And there are a bunch of different ways that you can interpret comedy like this. But there are a lot of people online who will literally just see, like, white guy said N-word, made fun of black man. Because a lot of people, this is why I hamper on, like, media critique so much. Because if a person doesn't understand what they're... And clearly, like, I think if we're even remotely charitable here, that video segment that we just watched, the point of it wasn't, haha, this guy's black. Like, that obviously wasn't the comedic thrust of the video. But a lot of people, like, that's what they'll pick up on and that's what they'll care about. So you're in this uncomfortable situation where, okay, the best example that you can get from this is if you have gay friends, they will make jokes about gay people that would be incredibly hateful if uttered by people who weren't gay. Like, there's some shit gay people will say to each other that sounds like it came right out of the mouth of, like, a Baptist minister. And if it came out of their mouth, that would be hate speech. But in the context of being with a group of friends where everyone knows, oh, we're all gay, we're all cool here, they make jokes that are obviously self-satirical, and the context changes massively. It's like how Boondocks, the Boondocks, is full of jokes making fun of black people, but it was written by black people for black people, so a lot of the comedy in that show is very clearly meant to be like a hyperbolic a take on the racial dynamic and the stereotypes that black people live under, and not just like white people laughing and saying, haha, black people, right? Likewise with gay people and with their culture and their community. It's really just a matter of like knowing your audience. Oh shit, Ryan's not gay? Okay, Ryan can't laugh at any of these jokes. Any jokes, any segments where I make gay jokes, you have to do the editing, Tempest. Is it okay to like the Boondocks as a white person? Well, yeah, you can like whatever you want. But it is worth pointing out, man, like, this is the shit that Chris Rock said, right? Like, Chris Rock would make the joke between N-words and N-words, right? That was Chris Rock? Or am I thinking of a Chappelle bit? That's Chris Rock, right? That was Chris Rock? Like, soft A, hard R, N-words. Like, he'd do a big bit. Oh, no, it was N-words and black people, is what he would say. Black people and N-words, right? And he stopped doing those bits because he felt like there were a lot of white people in the audience who were laughing for the wrong reason. But I guarantee you that when Chris Rock was like building that bit, like that to tell in his stand-up, he was talking with black people. Like when he was trying out the black people and N-word bit, he was doing it with his friends, with the people he worked with, who I guarantee you were black. And then he goes and sees a white audience laughing, and he feels like there's a difference, like there's a difference in what's being laughed at and why. And that's why he dropped the bit. You understand what I mean? Yeah, Chappelle had a similar moment. Yeah, this consistently happens. Yeah. So I'm just saying, like, so much of how quote unquote problematic humor is interpreted and handled comes down to the audience and what the audience is primed to take from it.
On this, and I get that, and because on some level, on a human level, I understand things, but on a content creator, on a public figure level of making things, I understand what it is to have insecurities, and I respect, I think it's big to admit that. But on the other level, I think to myself, well, did you know that then, right? Are you aware now of this insecurity, or did you know it then? And if so, why is the same not grace shown to a person like Jinx when you decide to make a content comp about them? And, basically what you're honing in on is saying is they're untalented or there isn't work that goes into their videos, right? Why isn't it sufficient enough to have your platform, right? You already have your platform that is in some way being boosted and made on this kind of bigoted content. That's one thing to exist in that space, but to not allow this other black creator to exist. And in the same way, you call black people themselves the N-word, but they aren't singled out in the apology. And I wonder why it is that that's the case. Love it.
They can't stand to see us, and this is not just exclusive to black people, this is marginalized people, period. This is what you're seeing happening during Pride, right? This idea that if I think you are less than me, how dare you like yourself? Exactly. How dare you be happy? How dare you be successful? Yes. When throughout history, I've been told that my whiteness and me doing the bare minimum is the standard.
Yes.
And now y'all taking my jobs, you taking my views, you out here taking my partners, like you are living the life that I'm supposed to have.
Yes.
And I'm just minding my business.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think Jinx specifically, I think all of these creators to, varying degrees that I've made content cop videos on, I think they deserve, their own apology in their own way. I think Jinx is definitely one of them. I think the type of content he was making, in the same way that I felt, I guess it wasn't necessarily that, Jinx making reaction content, like, nowadays that's like, it's common.
What's your take? Should he have apologized to the black guys? I don't know. You can't apologize to everyone. I've been doing stuff for years, like have a 6,000 person email list. She's just more curious, I guess, why the one named person would be a white woman, considering the context of a lot of the stuff that he's apologizing for. It's not a matter of what he should or shouldn't do. I'm just interested in what they're talking about.
place, right? So,
Yeah.
you know, he, in a lot of ways, initiated that trend. And I think, you know, the content I was making, it was just, it was cheap, I think, in kind of the same way that some people can view reaction content as cheap. So I think in a lot of ways I am guilty of what I was criticizing Jinx for. I was being very, just generally uncaring. And yeah, like I said, I was insecure about my ability to entertain. And yeah, I think, you know, Jinx deserves his own apology. And I'm open to, you know, personally talking to Jinx, or, you know, whatever he might be open to.
Yeah, I mean, because listen, I think something, I don't think it's so that there's an aversion to forgiving you, right? Like if I think of myself as a proxy representative for the Black community right now, I don't think it's that anybody has the aversion to forgiving you. I think it's the recognition that it doesn't matter whether we do or don't. Because if we had the ability to cancel you, you wouldn't have been successful in the first place. Because Black people have a problem with you now, had a problem with you then. They were just being ignored. And so similarly, what I think is the thing that I really want to unpack is this. Is that you're allowed to apologize, whether or not you don't or you do come forward. And I appreciate the approach that you've taken and that you've chosen to on your own without a larger controversy be forced to. But the thing is, what I noticed when I went down the deep dive is most of the Black people that you did single out are no longer making YouTube videos. They're no longer content creating in one way or the next. They've in some way been run off the platform or been terrified through years of harassment. Francesca was harassed so much that it's a part of her Wikipedia page, is that she's went through a series of harassment. And I think that's what's notable to me, because I watched Tana's response to your apology, and she talks about how she also respected it and how she would be open to a world where she talked to you, and how she herself has been canceled and her different pivots. And I think that is the thing that really is the ire of the community, and seeing that is that you have the ability to make a platform on bigoted content, attack a black content creators doing similar things, or basically target them as not.
Vaush, I generally agree with the sentiment with the video, but there's a part of me that this interview and video structure feels like self-flagellation. Like she takes up a lot of the time with clips, and I feel like keep in mind that like Idubbbz apparently feels like genuinely quite upset like about the stuff that he's done or said. Obviously, it's not how I would handle myself if I had like a big political pivot or some kind of shift in my thinking. I would honestly, I probably just wouldn't apologize. I just don't care. I've just never valued apologies that much. You do the best you can, do good things, and if you do bad things, you get roasted. You get raked over the coals for it. I don't value apologies that much interpersonally and socially, because I don't know how much they actually have to do with doing wrong. Vaush can't do wrong. No. You're misunderstanding. You can do wrong and then say it was wrong and then not apologize. You can if you want. I'm not saying it's wrong to apologize. If you want to apologize to people interpersonally, you can. But I don't think it should be the focus of a political shift. I'm more concerned with building incentive structures that make people want to be a part of the left, make them want to be what I am, or what Idubbbz is becoming, or what he wants to be, or whatever. And if people want to apologize, that's totally fine. It's not wrong to. It's more, I just don't want people to think that this process has to involve a lot of, self-denigration, a lot of, here are all the steps I have to take, a lot of, like, all that crap, I think it should be easy. I think we should be always very willing and ready to celebrate these kind of movements. And by the way, she's not, like, being bad to him or anything. Some people in chat, I'm just talking about the general process. I think the question she's asking is valid. I just don't, I don't think she's being unfair in the convo.
Not talented or not this or whatever it is, and essentially run them off the platform. But white content creators, even the ones guilty of doing those things, are able to pivot. And I think that's the thing that worries people, and like something I've been mulling over and how to go about this, because sometimes you worry that, well, if I say it's okay, or if you forgive people, then it incentivizes other people to do the same. Like, what is to say there aren't going to be, because it happens all the time, of people saying, I want to do something and I don't think I have the talent to do it. I don't think I have this. So let me make my platform on punching down, and I will be able to at a later date say sorry and move on.
I think that's an extremely valid fear, and I think that's kind of what...
See, that's a disagreement I have. I genuinely don't think that, like, this is a thing anyone thinks. I don't think anyone thinks, like, I can spend years being edgy so then I can shift over to the extremely lucrative market of like online leftists. You know, it's not like there's a huge incentive to shift left from a monetary perspective. Also, right now, Idubbbz is getting torn apart by his own community because they don't like that he's like cucked himself out to the left or whatever. Even this video is 50-50 on the likes and dislikes. I really don't think that like there's a threat of people profiting from like the grift over to the left. To the right, yes. But notably, even when people grift over to the right loves it. They don't care if it's sincere. So
from what I heard from Francesca, that's really frustrating, and
Yeah.
I don't think it's fair. I think, you know, it's good for people to change, obviously. I think the level that I would say the response that I've gotten anywhere from, you know, one end of the spectrum where like commentary channels are saying like, I don't think he has any reason to apologize, to like maybe Francesca Ramsey at the other end saying like, this isn't like even close to being enough.
Yeah.
Because a lot of, you know, Black creators and Black people in general have had to deal with the environment that, you know, me and, you know, other creators have made. And so, like, I think that entire range of reaction is appropriate.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, for me, it's sort of expected, right? Because I think a lot of the people who say that I shouldn't have apologized or something like that, they are so far from like arriving to where I'm at.
Yeah.
And I totally get Francesca's feelings of like, you can't like undo 5-10 years of harassment that I've received. Like,
yeah.
So I get it. I wish, I mean, all I can think of, you know, at this point is to communicate my headspace and like where I was at the time and how I came to terms with like understanding like my role and responsibility in our community, and just like communicate to that to people, because that's as close as I can get to like undoing things or like fixing things.
Yeah. And how did you, like, when you made the final decision that you were going to make the video, like that this is it, like what happened there?
I think there's been a lot of things. I think number one, I think like doing this whole creator clash thing has opened my eyes to it in a big way. I think I've had to interact with, you know, boxing is a community that has a lot of marginalized people in it. You know, there are a lot of Black people in boxing, Mexicans. I mean, it is super popular around the world. And
My dad loves boxing.
Yeah. I mean, I've had to, you know, interact with different people than the usual, like, you know, small bubble of like commentary YouTubers on YouTube. Like, that's very small. They're coming from like the same world that I come from. And it just makes my confidence in a lot of these like ideas that I've developed over the years be like less and less confident in them, because it's like, oh, holy shit, like these are real people, and they're as, you know, compassionate, and, you know, I don't know. It's just,
I get it. I mean, I went to boarding school in West Virginia, and I was the only Black girl in my senior class. So I have been people's many a white person's first introduction to a Black person that in any way departed from a caricature or a stereotype they had in their mind. And I think, and, you know, listen, I actually think you're in a better position than most if you think about it, because you're not the only white person. There are tons of white people, even the ones I'm sure condemning you, guilty of similar behavior, or at the very least being complicit on the spectrum of racism. So you're not alone. You're in a country full of company, right? So that's not. So in that respect, very often, I think, you know, when we talk about racism, all kind of white people, if they were able to, if there were video logs of their platform or how they've lived their life, I'm sure they have a community of Black people who would be upset, or who they've wronged, or they've fostered attitudes and things too. But they don't have the benefit, I think, in your case. You actually do have the benefit of knowing who and what. Like, you can't contain, once you spread like toxicity, you can't spread what your audience does. You can only try to course correct, and I respect that you are doing that, right? So you can't do anything about whatever Black people were on the receiving end of, who your audience members or those things. But you do know which individual Black people, you know, that you made content cops about, or that you singled out, and you know what those videos made in revenue. You have the ability to look at these things, and I think you do have a way to definitively, concretely do some things. And especially when we tie it back to you earlier saying you have no Black friends. And listen, even if you didn't tell me that, I knew that. I went to create a clash. So I knew. But I think there is a way to to change that. You know what I mean? If you're a person, if you have the benefit, whether we like it or not, of I can't crush your platform, nobody else can either. You're gonna have one. You're gonna still have this audience. So if you have the benefit, your white privilege is that you have the ability to maintain your platform and continue to grow. I think a way that you step forward, a way you atone that, is to change the lack of the way the black.
I don't like this personally. Advice, get black friends is just not, because it's like the incentive then is like, oh, time for me to find a black friend so that I can orient my shift in, you know, in my political perspective and my humanization of black people around like an interpersonal friendship. Yeah, it's like a token thing. I think that has to be like a hands-off topic, whether a person does or doesn't have black friends or whatever. You know, like if they do, they do. If they don't, they don't. I don't think like advice, you know, like prerequisites, like The Sims, like prerequisite for like lefty growth, like have black friends. Yeah, I don't like that. Then again, she's saying it pretty casually here. I wish there were more questions that had to do with what he wants, more so than what he has to do. I think you can learn a lot more about a person by asking them what they want than by seeing their reactions to being told what they have to do. Okay, but isn't it a little weird when someone doesn't have black friends in a city that has a bunch of them? I mean, I guess it depends really on, like, the age they are and, like, social situation and stuff. If you go to, like, a preppy private school and there's, like, no black people there, I guess, I mean, it's a roll of the dice kind of thing, you know? Like, again, I grew up in Beverly Hills. I did have black friends growing up, but both of them were kind of unlikely. There was, like, one black kid my age who was on my street who moved. I think his father played football, if I remember. And we hung out for a while as, like, neighborhood friends. And then my first partner was black Brazilian. But that was, like, a total lark, you know? Like, that was not a likely... That was not likely to have happened. If it wasn't for those two things, I probably wouldn't have had black friends until college. Not for lack of trying, it's just I mostly got into, like, the gaming scene. And, you know, if there weren't a lot of black kids that were playing games in my, like, middle school, you know, is what it is. I don't think people should actively, like, seek out friends of a given race, necessarily. You know, obviously, I think it's good when people have a diverse friend group. It's just... I don't know if it's something you can consciously do to good outcomes. You know what I mean? Maybe in some circumstances you could. I don't really know. That doesn't sound right. Every black person I know games as if it was water. In the fighting game community, there's the game communities that I've noticed have a lot of people of color are like fighting games, sports games, shooters, that kind of stuff. I played StarCraft, so not so much. You know, I mean, there were plenty of minorities in StarCraft, but they're not black, they're Korean. Maybe friendship is the wrong word, but prolonged exposure helped, doesn't it? Yeah, being around a wide range of people just makes you a smarter and better person. That's good. I just, you know, I just worry about the mentality of somebody who would be going after someone specifically, like, oh, you know, like, oh, they're cool and they're black, so, like, then I'd have a black friend, you know. Yeah. It's not exposure therapy, right? It's just you hang out in the communities you hang out with, and, you know, it is what it is. Correct biases if you identify them in yourselves, but, you know.
People's platforms that you brought down, bring some black people's platforms up. You know what I mean? And listen, in some respect, I will consider your presence here, you taking the step in to getting on the black side of the internet. But I do think that is a way you can concretely do something. Like, take a look at the privated videos or whatever videos it is.
Oh, by the way, if you're trying to keep a white boy from saying the N-word, do not make them have black friends. There is nothing black people like more than to chant, like, say it, white boy, say it, white boy. Like, they love that shit more than anything else. They like seriously, the worst possible advice you could give a white boy with regards to not saying the N-word.
Where you targeted whatever content creators and look and see how much did that make, or what was this, and like sit down and try to like piece by piece, what can we do about this? How can we reach out to these folk? And I think that can that shows some kind of material step, you know, like, you know what, I acknowledging that it's not just that you built your platform off of, you know, some bigoted content, because that's not innately the problem. It's that you also destroyed Black platforms. And so I think that's where a good place for you to kind of move forward. And that was an idea I wanted to bring to you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think that's a good idea. And I'm going to take your advice on that. I think I was going to go on Tana's podcast.
Yeah.
What is your, I guess, I'm curious what your thoughts on doing that would be.
I think you can do that. I don't think that there is a problem with you doing that, especially if that's somebody you singled out and you did do something there. And like I said, I don't think you're wrong to apologize to or acknowledge a dangerous element or that. I don't think that will warm the hearts of the communities, the particular marginalized communities they feel impacted by, because I think they're still going to feel like the narrative will still be that a white woman was centered in all of this, and that ultimately you're apologizing for saying a racial slur, a Black racial slur to a white lady. So I don't think you're wrong to do it. I think you can do multiple things in the same way that you could sit down and talk to me. I think you can sit down and talk to Tana. So I think that's fine. I don't think you have to take that out of your.
I just don't think he has to do anything. I don't think he has to do anything, you know? If he moves over, he moves over. But we're not really evaluating his interpersonal relationships with previous people that he's wronged. He wants to? Well, if he wanted to, he would just do it. I feel like moving on is sometimes the best. I just worry about like this infinitely granular attitude towards rehabilitation, where it's like, okay, well, you've done the first 50 things, but have you done this next 50? I'm not saying that she's doing that here. It's just I worry about that trend, mostly because of how nebulous this like, well, what do you need to do thing is, like where that stops or where that point really ends. And I don't know what the threshold should be, you know? I guess I'm always going to be more cynical on stuff like this because my impression of online leftists is that they don't believe in rehabilitation. That in reality, they're actually just as petty and spiteful and vindictive as any other group against people they don't like. They're just better at systemically justifying why they don't like them, you know? Which isn't necessarily good. Vaush, you should make it clear you don't think she's being crazy unreasonable here. No, I don't think she's being crazy unreasonable. I think people in chat are being way the too defensive. Why are you guys being defensive? Are you guys the ones who are the most like hated person on all of LeftTube? I'm sorry, am I unaware of the like rampant surge in popularity of 60 separate people in my chat who are all themselves the subject of massive concurrent hate campaigns the way that I am? No, it's just me. So, you know, with that in mind, I don't think she's being weird.
But I think the same way you've made these are bold steps. Like I said, I want to give credit to that. Most people are not sitting down with me, okay? People are scared of me on a regular, even in court, okay? So I think it's just about you.
Is this why so many black lefties don't like you? Because you refuse to participate in the process? I don't think I have a problem. Like, I don't think there's a problem with black lefties. It's just online lefties. The people who give me shit overwhelmingly are white people because most people in the online left are white people. I don't really think there's like a big... I don't really think there's like a big disproportionate skew there. I don't know what their process means either. I don't know what's going on with you guys.
Say it now. Hey, maybe let me see how I reach out to a Jinx, or at the very least, even if you, because a lot of these people may not be receptive to talking to you. I know Francesca don't care to speak to you or anything like that. But I think there's a way that you can change a narrative. Like what I saw a lot when I was watching, there was a video. That's why I figured I watched a whole video on the end of Jinx's career, right? And that begins with Content Cap Cop is the beginning of the end for Jinx. And even because of an audience, we know this, being on Twitter, the popular opinion is who's got the biggest audience, right? Or who's the winner, or who's still standing. And so because you're the one that's still standing and Jinx has been run off the platform, the audience's perspective is like, he was stupid, he was prideful, he should have. I'm like, yeah. He's calling him every kind of N-word and you're mad at the man because he's upset. I think there's a way that we can speak up for people, that you could say, hey, you know what? I actually was wrong, you know what I mean? Or that wasn't, that's not the right perspective to have in that, because so much public perception changes whether or not we're able to succeed. And changing the public perception on Jinx is what killed him. So I think there's also a way that you can just kind of walk back some of these things and maybe recognize the humanity that you didn't recognize in them then, recognize it now. Because think about if you felt the way you felt and all the things that you're going to do, but your platform was gone. Yeah. So I think that's a way, I think.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I don't know to the extent like how much of this footage you plan on using for your video, but
Yeah.
I did find out a couple months ago that Jinx has me blocked on Twitter. So if Jinx does come across this video, I'll see if there's an email or something. But let it be known, I'm down to speak with you and even do it.
Idubbbz did everything right and they canceled him and they indicted me. Sorry. It was the perfect N-word. Sorry.
All publicly or whatever he'd like.
And I love that. Listen, I love that. The defense attorney in my heart. When I stumbled on the Jinx thing, I was like, listen, I'm years behind. I didn't know nothing about Jinx in 2015 of all of this, but I was like, he does not know it wherever he is in the world, but justice for Jinx. I was like, so I'm glad. And I'm really glad that you sat down with me. Is there anything in particular? I want to make sure that you're able to like say whatever you say, because I think this is the closest you're going to get to talking directly to Cornbread Tube. So, you don't know Cornbread Tube? Have you never heard that?
No, I haven't. I was like, what is that?
Oh, Brad Tube is the video essayist space, right? The general video essays, and Cornbread Tube is the black video essayist space.
Okay. Yeah. I've heard of Cornbread Tube. That's funny. I like that.
Yes, you get it. If there's anything you wanted to say to them directly, please, this is your moment.
Oh, I mean, maybe I'd have more to say if I was like familiar, but is there like more? Is there any like?
That's where everybody is. All of the cap blacks, or that's where.
Okay.
Yeah,
oh, yeah,
so that's our side of it.
I guess I'll just say, like, out of the, I've watched, I tend to want to stay away from a lot of the reaction videos to, like, my apology and stuff. Because mentally it's just tough to deal with.
Yeah.
But there have been a few that I've watched fully, and Cat Black is one of the videos that I watched. And,
oh, no.
I mean, I would say out of any of the, reactions to watch, in my opinion, it would be Cat Black's response, because she definitely comes from obviously a perspective of
we're looking down the barrel of a timeline where in 2024 Idubbbz cancels me on Twitter for my reactionary politics. Do you think the Cat Black video has like a 20-minute interlude in the middle where she talks about how she doesn't care about my penis?
Being someone this apology might be appropriate for, and she essentially says like, hey, I'm probably not gonna watch, I'm not like an Idubbbz fan or anything, I'm probably not gonna watch any of his videos going forward, but I at least feel a little bit more safe if he's like at a convention or we pass by each other or whatever. Like I'm not gonna immediately dismiss him as like the racist guy or whatever. And that's, to be honest, like all I'm all I could ask for in that case.
Good. Well, I appreciate that I really appreciate that you sat down. I appreciate the willingness to own it, because like I said, it's just true. It's not just true about you. Like, I have my own white friends. We know, we can call them up, be like, ooh, Mark, that was racist. He'd be like, oh, my fault. Like, and you course correct. The only way that you can fix a problem is if you acknowledge it exists. We all have biases and prejudices, and I can't rake you over the coals for what's been done, but what I wanted to do was maybe explain to you, I was like, you know what, if I seem to have a path or an ability to talk to him, let me give you some of my thoughts, and maybe that helps you better understand where the community comes from, and maybe other people listening to it and watching it that are open to that can get it too, and we can maybe do something better about how we deal with these pivots, these apologies.
I super appreciate it. I think the you bringing up Jinx and other Black creators that have been affected, I think is very appropriate, and I think you're right. I think like he was, I think, the first person I did a content cop video on, and it's been a long time since then, and you're right, like a lot of these, I'm thinking about like Keemstar and even Rice Gum, like all of these guys have like been kind of continued to like push on, because they are, I don't know, they're like cockroaches of YouTube. They just continue to like,
please don't apologize to Rice Gum for any reason.
Make content, whether it be drama or anything else. So I think it's easy to forget those who disappear off the internet, and generally
I'm gonna make an apology video to Leafy because it was ableist to point out his chin and his intelligence and his behavior.
Neglected. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
And also, if you if you ever need to get a white guy's perspective on who has definitely like been there, I'm always available.
Thank you so much, Ian. I'm glad this went well. I was I believe it or not, I was a little bit nervous.
Hey. I mean, I'm trying. I was nervous too.
Good, I'm glad. Raheem hasn't made.
They're both very cute together. I enjoyed watching this video a lot. I'm kind of curious to see how things go. I wonder how hard it would be to talk to Idubbbz. He doesn't follow me on Twitter, which makes me think that he might not like me. I'm well known enough that he would follow me if he wanted to. He's streaming right now, but he's playing WoW. It's been a while since we just jumped into somebody's chat and asked if they're down to chat. I think he's playing with somebody, though. Oh, wait.
Wait, is Anissa French Canadian?
I'm not French Canadian. I'm
yeah, that's someone else.
Yeah, I'm from the West.
He's playing with his wife. Oh, that's his wife. I'm not gonna bother a guy when he's talking to his wife.
Thank God.
Kind of sicko shit would that be?
I was watching this TikTok of this woman who was like, "French Canadians, are you okay?" Like,
they're not. I guess we'll have to bother him in the future. I'll still raid him though.